an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece, episodes 194 and 195. In these episodes, our friends are finally leaving Skypeia. It's tragic. I wish we had gotten a little bit more time to just chill in the clouds. But they at least make off with gold. The sad part is, it's just not nearly as much gold as they could have made off with. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to, I was going to say Gabriella, and then I was like, Nope, today it's Florian. Thank you very much to Florian for commissioning this episode. Gabriella is in the chat saying, yay, end of saga. I know, and it's weird because I didn't expect it to end in these two episodes. I was sure that something was going to come up to maybe bring them to a different section of Skypeia and have them get involved in something different. But no, they're going to the Blue Sea. They're back home, essentially. And it doesn't seem like they're going to ever see Cricket again. Because I had this sort of assumption in my head that their ship would land next to where they took off from, which wasn't too far from Cricket's place. And they would be like, hey, did you hear it? Like, just have a moment of celebration with him as well. We see Cricket's reaction, but we don't have a reunion between him and the other friends. So they wind up somewhere totally unknown. At least it seems unknown so far to me. And this means that we are really head first into the next saga, I guess. Unless we're not. I just realized the next section is filler episodes, huh? I didn't even think about that until just a second. But I think it's like the next 6 or so. So maybe where they landed isn't actually going to wind up being that important. I don't know. And you guys can't really tell me, I guess. But I just thought about that because anytime when I manage to get a filler arc, I find it really fun to just put the show on and let it roll. So I get excited about it. But I did forget that I had one coming up, I'll admit. Gus says, head first into the filler arc. Yes, it's a good filler arc, though. Next 10. Ooh, 10? Word? I thought it was 6. All right, well, shit. I'll be able to get a lot of computer work done while I watch the show. All right. So let's get this started. Let's talk about it. We pick up right after the huge party that got thrown to celebrate the new peace between Shandorans and Skypeians. And the only one awake at this point is Luffy. Everybody else is passed out. This is something that I find, I want to know how many people have experienced this. Because the phenomenon in this show of parties that happen out in the street and result in the whole town sleeping in the road is quite high. And I don't know if that's just a funny cartoon gag or if that is something that is like more of a thing other places, or if it's something that's more of a thing when you just happen to party a lot harder than I have, because I was never a real big partier. It's so annoying too. I say I wasn't a big partier, and the thing is, I fucking love parties. I love dressing up. I love the loud music. I love dancing. I love seeing people. I love exciting food and drinks. But whenever you say a big partier, it sounds like either you fuck a lot, or you drink a lot, or you sniff a lot. It's like never just, I enjoy parties. Because then I would be a very big partier. But, Gabriella says you're actually getting into a long section of a couple of fillers with some kind of episodes in between. Some canon. Okay. Seraphim says, well, not like they have to worry about cars or traffic. True, but like, what... Have you guys been to homes where this happens? Like, you have a big house party and then you walk through the next day and people are literally passed out on the floor in the living room where they just laid down, like, at the end of the party. Because that is just something that I have to assume either you're really, really drunk and you just don't think you're going to be able to get anywhere else, or you passed out sincerely and just got left there. Or I guess you just waited until absolutely everybody was not in that room anymore. I'm just trying to think of how the logistics of that would work. Gus says, I think it's more of a thing when your entire island is liberated from certain doom by a passing rubber boy. Well, I mean, like, this isn't the first time we've seen this, though. And I don't mean to say this is the first time we've seen a village liberated by a passing rubber boy, because granted, that's like the entire show. But there have been many instances of this, and it just gets me going, maybe this is actually a thing. Anyway, Luffy is running through all of them, and what it turns out he wants to do is get his people together and steal up all the gold and run away. Look, I'm just going to say it. That's fucked up. Word? You're just going to come in here. You're going to kill their god. And granted, you're saving them. That's fine. And they're going to have a big party to celebrate that they're not at war anymore. And then you're just going to loot them and take off. What the fuck, man? That is fucked up. And like, they clearly feel they're doing something wrong, or else they wouldn't be sneaking to do it in the dead of night. So they are just gonna... This is fucked up. Let's see. Seraphim says, been to one party like that, was just a big near end of senior year house party that half the people there just kind of ended up crashing at the place. Gus says he's a pirate, and Seraphim says, hey, weren't you the one that wanted them to act more like pirates? I wondered why I won't even say I wanted them to act more like pirates, but I just felt like I wasn't getting what he meant by pirate, and it turns out I wasn't. But we have established a pattern of behavior up till now, and that is the good guys are going to try and do right by everybody. And this feels like a very abrupt about turn, especially considering they know that the gold wasn't really valued and prized by these people the way that gold where they come from is. So they should know better than anybody that if you just asked, they probably would give it to you because it's just not important to them. So it just feels just shockingly underhanded for a crew that up to now, they're literally willing to risk their lives for people, and they've given up bags and bags of treasure before just to like make a point. But then they have this massive event I need to remind everybody, it's all coming from Shandora, it looks like. And that was the land that already was being like colonized and taken away from its people. So it just feels like Shandora got double looted. And I think it's just a fucked up thing. It's a fucked up thing. And Robin still hasn't actually explained to them by the end of these 2 episodes what the giant thing that the villagers were carrying to their ship actually was. She is just letting them think it was a cannon and hasn't corrected them. I'm really wondering if she ever will, because I think that maybe we're just going to let it rest that our friends, what they don't know won't make them cry. So they think they got away with something, It's still something. I guess I'll just let them continue to believe that, because what's the point in letting them know how much better it could have been? But part of me wants her to tell them, because I feel like maybe they would feel a little bit more ashamed of themselves if they managed to like step back and realize how much those people were willing to just give, and that they bailed on them like this, trying to do it in the middle of the night. So Seraphim says, once it's been eaten by a giant snake, does it really count as belonging to anyone but whoever is willing to go into the giant snake to get it? You know what, Seraphim, you make a very solid point. Nevertheless, they clearly felt like they were doing something wrong, or they wouldn't have run away the way they did. They knew they were being shady. It's just, I mean, I guess it all worked out in the end, and the Shandorans didn't seem upset. They were fine. But from the outside, I'm just like, this is really not the look, Luffy. But yeah, that's what they wind up having to do. They have to go into the snake to get it. And I have to mention that there is a conversation with everybody deciding whether or not they're going to go through with this, where Usopp looks down at Chopper and wiggles his eyebrows about like how they're about to get a bunch of gold. And Chopper looks up at him and says, he's so cool, like inside his head. And later on, he does the same thing with Sanji, I think. And I'm realizing that Chopper's role as always thinking somebody is so cool, everybody needs somebody like this in their crew, I think. Somebody who is genuinely impressed all the time, even when you're like trying too hard or not actually that competent. Having somebody who is like impressed with everything you do, and that applies to everyone, not just, you know, the leader of the pack. That is just good for morale. And I love Chopper's function here, and his true, very real admiration, sincere admiration and respect for all these guys warms my heart. It's so cute. On anybody else, I'd be like, oh my God, wise up, kid. But Chopper is so pure and so silly and gullible, but also fucking wholesome, that I can't be mad at it. It's just adorable. And I wish that there was somebody in all our lives who could be our Chopper and just look at us with stars in their eyes. Very literally at times. So anyway, they go into the snake to get this treasure. And in the meantime, the rest of the Shandorans have found out that the bell has been discovered and is at the top of the beanstalk. So they are getting a crew together to try and wrap it in rope and lift it and save it. And they eventually get joined by the Skypeians, and they manage to save it and pull it up. And it's a very, like, it's the kind of moment that I was trying to think about what any kind of symbol that we have either in the United States or just as human beings that would mean something like this and is also kind of a legend. And it's the sort of thing that I don't really have a great idea. But the concept of something that is as important as this bell was in the first place. It's not like the bell didn't mean that much, but now that so much time has passed, the bell has grown in importance as a symbol. That bell was like a major factor in the way Shandorans lived, and they're sort of like a temple area to begin with. And then all of this time passes. So the importance of the bell to the Shandorans and the recovery of it is such a big deal, which makes it extra surprising that one of the supports, which is broken off of the bell, is what they decide to give our friends, because it's part, like, it would be repairable. I just don't think it wouldn't be reparable. However, they, without a second thought, are just like, oh yeah, let's give this weird crew of misfits a pillar of gold so enormous that their ship would sink if we put the whole thing onto it. That is some gratitude, I gotta say. Gus says, I think Luffy kind of views being a pirate as doing whatever you want. And since he's a pretty good dude, he ends up saving a couple people. Oh, no, sorry, it doesn't say a couple. He ends up saving people and making friends and being unpirate-like. But I mean, like, he doesn't care about laws or doing the right thing on principle or anything. That's interesting, Gus. You don't think he cares about doing the right thing on principle? I mean, I guess because, like, we have seen him be a real shit about some things, like eating absolutely all the food so that nobody else gets any. But I mean, I feel like he cares about the right thing on principle in some cases. I feel like he's got a very narrow margin, but he does have a code. But apparently this didn't fit into it. It's fine. So anyway, those dudes are getting the bell, and as that's going on, we see Usopp doing something with a bunch of the, I think it's a mixture of, Shandorans and like Skypeia folk, Skypeians. And it's sort of playing this like music in the background to suggest that he's a carnival hawker or something, because he's waving around all of these things and making up these really fantastical backstories and then trying to get people to trade with him. And one of the things that is the hottest ticket item is a rubber band. Several people want them, and he is able to trade a variety of dials for these rubber bands. And the dials are extremely useful. Like, I don't think I really stopped to think about what Usopp would feel about the dials, but he has got a sack of them by the end of this that do a bunch of different things. And I'm pretty happy about it, because it has been a little bit hard for me at times to accept that Usopp puts together the weapons he does with the tools that he has. It's just always felt a little like, okay. You know, he'll whip something out of fucking nowhere. But the dials being added to the equation, I feel like that is something I can hand wave away now for a good long while. I'll just, anything that I'm like, how would he make that? I just say, oh, there's a dial, and that'll be it. And I kind of like having that explanation, you know? So anyway, the thing that we see him like using the dials for initially is irritating Zoro. Zoro is out here doing some sword practice, and he is slicing a giant block of stone in half. And the two of them are essentially killing time outside the snake. It looks like everybody else went in except for Robin. And the two of them are waiting. And Zoro is starting to get very impatient, because that is just how he exists. It's really funny how Zoro can be so centered when he's like fighting or meditating on his craft. But when it comes to just having to wait for everybody, he gets so twitchy and distracted. Maybe it's just his hyper focus is his swordsmanship. It only works for that. So they're waiting around the snake, and Zoro is like, they better get out of there before too much longer, because that snake was a kind of an asshole when it was awake. And Usopp is dancing around him using one of the tone dials to like repeat his own voice. I was so confused because I didn't realize that's what he was doing at first. I was like, Zoro. And when Usopp says, whatever, I think he says like, this cute little snake or something like that a bunch of times, I was like, why are they repeating it with the exact same intonation? What's going on? And then when it's a dial, I'm like, oh my God, I feel like an idiot, because I know they can do that. So we then have a ceremony once everybody has sort of gotten all of their gold out and they're moving towards the ship. we spend some time with the Skypeians and the Shandorans, who are all gathered around this bell, and Robin is with them. And they are deciding who is going to be the next ruler. And they wind up, I'm jumping ahead here because it doesn't happen right now, but they wind up assigning Gonfall as the ruler again. And it was the Shandoran, like, shaman who chose him. I can't quite get down with that. I mean, granted, we're going to go ahead with this, like, scenario in which the kinds of fighting that have lasted generations has been forgiven all in one night. All of that brutality is completely water under the bridge. So maybe. But the idea that the Shandorans and Skypeians would just agree to be one united people, and they would all agree that Gonfall, the guy who had kind of been like their big bad for a little while, is the one in charge now, I don't see it for that. It feels like some colonizer bullshit, I'm just saying. But at the base of the bell is a huge, I love this so much, a huge poneglyph. And somebody asks, what does it say on it? And this guy says, I think we're better off not knowing, which is the best answer if you don't know. It's such a smart way to play it. I have to remember this. If I just don't know something, I'll make it sound like knowing would actually be bad. And then what is anybody going to say to me? That is genius. Just saying. When he says that and Robin walks up and just reads it, I rewatched it and realized what was about to happen in that moment and found it so funny. He's about to posture and then Robin's going to come in and be like, so here's what it says. We hold our true motives in your hearts and speak not of this. We are the ones who weave history with the sounding of the grand belfry. And it turns out Robin can read these. She says they were carved on the Shandorian ruins, so you were the keepers entrusted with this for generations. And at first I thought this was going to be the thing that she's been looking for. But it turns out it's like a piece of the puzzle to lead her to the thing that she's been looking for. So she says it mentions Poseidon, an ancient weapon named after a god, its whereabouts. And I really love, at one point, people are interrupting in the background because she's in front of a bunch when she's saying all of this. So, they have to like, oh my goodness. Somebody says, did she say ancient? Like, that's the word that they're going to, this shit has been ancient. What are you talking about? Did she say, eventually somebody is like, weapon? But that's not the first one. And I found that so funny. I hope that these are ad-libbed. Seraphim says that, Gus says first, that's what the other poneglyph says, actually, the one she found earlier. Oh, so she's not reading it from far away. She's reciting a thing, and then she starts reading about the weapon thing. That wasn't a poneglyph, just similar writing to what is on the poneglyphs. Okay. Thank you, guys. I got all braggy at the start of this saying, I watched this twice, so I think I know what's going on, and apparently I do not. But, yeah, Robin here, I was kind of surprised because I thought that she was going to get really excited about this, and instead she gets worried. She thinks about the crocodile talking about a weapon called Pluton and realizes that that's two that she's found out about so far. There's got to be more probably. And they're just out here waiting for people to like stumble across them. Not a great situation. So as she's walking away, a guy points off to the side and is like, what about that thing? Is that the same language and the same symbols? And it's this gold, it almost looks like a headstone, actually. And it says Gold D. Roger is what she can read in the translation. And it says, I made it here. I will guide this text to the ends of the earth. It says text in the translation. In the dub, it says, guide this passage to the ends of the earth. And since it sort of seems like it was meant to be a riddle, that feels like a much better, like, translation in terms of making it a little bit confusing, because guide this passage can mean journey. So a lot of people would just assume that is what is meant there. But passage can also mean, paragraph of text. And she is like, wait, Goldie Roger came to the Sky Islands as well? What the fuck? And then she's like, and he understood this language? What does that mean? And Gonfall is sitting there and is like, wait, Goldie Roger, is that what you just said? And she's like, yeah, this pirate that came like 25 years ago. And come to think of it, there are two kinds of poneglyph stones. Ones with information, others that indicate their whereabouts. And this stone is one of the ones with information. So she thinks that what he is talking about when he says, guide this passage, is the actual Rio poneglyph. That's right? Like, that's the name of the one that she is seeking. And it's a huge moment for her to realize that it's the Rio poneglyph. The whole sky goes white. All of these leaves dance around her face. Her expression is incredibly shocked and excited. I don't really get why I should care about this. It's not like I'm willing to care about it to a point because Robin cares about it. But I guess it's that we know that there's like a relationship to them and like weapons, I guess, at this point. So maybe I'm meant to feel some urgency due to the potential of weapons being at risk here. But I feel like I don't have a good grip on, and clearly I don't, because you guys had to correct something earlier. And I feel like I was paying pretty close attention to these two episodes. I'm watching it twice and didn't catch that's what was going on there. So I just don't feel like I really understand what's at risk here. Why she's so eager for it. All it seems like is that she's super interested because she's a historian. And the weapons are this really vague thing that isn't at the foremost of her mind when she seems to be like thinking about what's important about them. It's like the weapons almost felt like an afterthought in the way that she referenced them right here. So I don't really understand why Robin cares so much. And because I don't understand why she cares so much, I don't really care. I feel like this is supposed to be a bigger moment than it actually felt like, because in the moment, it just seems sort of, oh, okay, good. I'm glad you're happy, but it didn't really matter to me. Seraphim says you aren't meant to know yet why this matters so much. Gus says, remember also that we heard from her in Alabasta that she is searching for the record of the Void Century, not the weapons. I remember that, not even a little bit, Gus. Be perfectly honest with you. That rings no bells. It's not even like, nope, nothing. Don't recall. And Seraphim says you aren't meant to know why this matters so much. Okay, I just feel like I wish they would give us something, because they're spending enough time on this now that not having any stakes. And I also don't know Robin that well. You know, if it were any one of our other crew members who was this obsessed with finding a thing, I would at least be invested in them finding it because I care about them as characters because they've been around for so long. But I don't have that with Robin yet. So overall, it's just kind of like, what are we doing? I guess it makes sense that I'm not really remembering things because they don't feel important. But regardless, she tells the shaman, I bet those poneglyphs with information scattered around the world will, when put together, become one text that will reveal the true history of the Void Century. In other words, the passage completed by connecting them. And I don't even know what that means. The passage revealed by connecting them. Are we talking like a literal passage, like time travel? Or what? But anyway, yeah, because the way that it's like, there's an animation when she's describing this, and it looks like a portal, the way that they're presenting it. So it feels very literally a passage from one place to another, which the fact that those meanings overlap quite that well is pretty cool, I will say. So the shaman breaks down and cries because their duty is fulfilled and the war is truly over. And I, again, was a little bit confused by this because I thought the war was already over. And I think I was misunderstanding something there. And I'm sorry if I'm dense, guys. Like I said, I watched this twice. I feel like some of the history got dropped so suddenly and completely in one place that it was a little too dense for me to absorb every detail about it. Passage as in text. Okay, so they're organizing everything in a circle that is linked together with one inside the other, looking exactly like a wormhole. That's just a coincidence. I really thought that was like a purposeful choice in the animation. All right. Well, that's a little disappointing because I really hoped that we were going to get some time travel stuff mixed in here. But yeah, this dude freaks out because the war is actually over. And then we have the moment where everybody is like, oh, we have to give our friends something to remember us by and let them know that we're so grateful for everything that they have done for us. How about this giant chunk of gold the size of an apartment building? And again, I kind of wish that we got to see our friends like see it and know what it is, because what would they do with it? They literally couldn't take it all. Would they create a plan where they would like come back periodically for the rest of it? Or let's see. Seraphim says, Wiper was really the only one hard up to keep the war going. Now that he's chilled out, it's not too hard for them to work things out. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, but like this guy is acting like he burst into tears as if this particular bit of text ended the war. Or what she was figuring out about how they could be put together in one piece ended the war. When we just had a massive party the night before because we had peace now. So I think that I'm confused about what the issue according to each of them was. Gus says the shaman understood it was their duty to protect this poneglyph since Robin tells them that Gold D. Roger guided this text to the end. He thinks that they don't need to risk their lives to protect it anymore. Why don't they? And they didn't know where it was. And it doesn't matter. You know what? I'm getting fixated on something that does not matter. This is just shaky for me, and that's fine. It really is not important in the end. So the rest of our crew, they're waiting for Robin before they leave. They look up and they see her coming, and all of these men behind her carrying this massive object, and they think that it's a cannon. They think that these people are coming for us because they figured out that we stole a bunch of gold and better make hay and get the fuck out of here with what we've got. And Robin sees them from far away, and I think she starts to realize the mistake they're making and what they think is going on. But she is not particularly worried about it beyond making sure she keeps up so that she can catch her ride on the ship as well. Like, she doesn't tell them later on, as I've said, that that was a apartment complex size chunk of gold that those guys was carrying towards her. So, or were carrying towards them. Got myself tongue-tied. So the episode ends with our guys like running off. And then we open in the next one with Lockie doing Ailsa? Is it Ailsa's hair? I can't remember her name. Isla? The little girl. And she's telling her that she needs to be more ladylike and act more like a girl. You look too much like a boy with this hair. You're a girl, so you should look cute. Which I don't think I need to say much about how that irritated me. But it really quite did. What are you... Come on, I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you, Lockie. But they're talking about like their friends who have taken off, and Lockie wishing that she could say something to them before they, or probably disappear forever, because I don't see any way that they're coming back here. It was luck that they managed it to begin with. And there's a slow pan over the entire village and a voiceover from Viper about how they finally are at rest and they don't need to fight anymore. And they won't cause war, but we will also not let the fire of Shandora go out, as we go over and pan to the bell. And then the moment where their shaman hands over leadership to Gonfall. Which made sense. It was sort of funny because I didn't really stop and think about it, but Gonfall had been God, and now he is just like a guy who's fighting to basically just like fighting to keep everybody from one another's throats was really it. It wasn't even like taking a particular side so much as everybody is fighting for reasons that they don't need to be. And they don't seem to have had anybody on the ground who was a leader other than like the White Berets, I guess. They didn't have a mayor or anything like somebody in charge in a traditional way. So it didn't really occur to me to wonder what would happen in terms of leadership when they left, because I had forgotten that really wasn't set up to work if there wasn't a god, apparently. But you would even think then that the gods would have had some government building, a tax collector, I don't know, anything. Nevertheless, our friends are all together on the deck of the ship, and they are realizing that they are leaving forever. And all of them are kind of like, man, that sucks. I actually really liked it here. This place was super cool, and I'm a little bit bummed that we're leaving already. And they're heading through Cloud End, and we've got Conus and her little fox and her dad running beside the ship to send them off and saying goodbye. And they are watching our friends tilt onto a sort of chute made of cloud. And I guess that it really does make sense, considering how fast everything happens, that our friends would never have gotten a good description of what it's like to leave this way. And Conus is trying her best from the sidelines because they just decided to take off. You know, she wasn't given a chance, or she maybe would have given them this information. But what we wind up doing is first the steepness of the slide onto the chute. Oh my God. And I forgot that bird catches up with them. You guys, I forgot about this, but it's the south bird that they brought with them to help them guide the ship. And it says, "Don't leave without me," which, considering that there's a lot of south birds on this island up here, but they are all enormous, I would also want to leave. I don't want to just live among giants my whole life. But anyway, what I was going to say was, what we get for their departure is this really, really steep, almost like a roller coaster kind of drop with this chute at probably a 45-degree angle. Actually, it might be more than that. And they go flying over the edge of it, and it made my stomach lurch. And they're all aware that there's going to be a steep drop, but they don't seem as scared as they should, considering it is just starting and this is what it just did. You were almost perpendicular to the ground that you're sailing on. And then, watching from the side, Conus just yells, "I'll hang on to something. Here comes the free fall." And we watch this ship fly out over the edge in the midst of like a beautiful circular rainbow, which was very well done, and hover in midair like Wile E. Coyote chasing the Roadrunner. And we get a very choice animation series here in which the Going Merry, the figurehead that looks like a sheep's face, is like in shock. And as soon as it jumps over to all of our friends, their eyeballs have left their heads and are floating in the air above about a foot above their heads, as if everything is moving so slowly into the air that they're leaving other heavier things behind. It is, honestly, it was so upsetting. I don't like heights. I don't like falling. I can deal with roller coasters if I am allowed to scream as much as I need to, because I need to. But watching this, and they have no restraints on them. They are just flying into the air with all of their belongings. And in midair, they are falling past Conus and her dad, who have their arms up and are smiling, completely delighted. Conus and Pagaya, if I'm saying your name right, Pagaya, you felt so cold-blooded to me in that moment. You are watching all of these people probably die. You can't think that they're going to survive this. And you are just cheering them on. That, the two of you are cold-blooded. Damn. Anyway, I have a question about this moment. She says Heso to them as they go over and disappear. Have we heard that before? I don't know what that means, and I thought it was in Japanese and found it interesting that it apparently wasn't translated for the dub, because both the voice actor and the subtitle say the same exact thing. So I'm not sure if that is like a greeting that I have forgotten that was used earlier, or if it's a new thing. But I was just curious because it's the last thing that she says. So it feels like it should be sort of significant. But yeah, they drop over the side, plummet downward, and they have plummeted about 100 yards. By the time she pulls out her little pipe and says, "Sky Island's famous octopus balloon." Bitch, how about you get that shit queued up before your friends go down 90 degrees 100 yards? What is wrong with you, ma'am? Is it just for the shits and giggles? Is it like, I knew you took our gold. I know all about it. So I'm going to save you, but I'm going to let you fucking sit in that for a minute before I do it. Something about it felt very purposeful. So the ship drops and in midair gets grasped by a huge octopus, which understandably everybody initially thinks is an enemy. I mean, why wouldn't you? Because nobody has warned you about this. Nobody has said anything to you about the giant floating octopus that is going to lower your ship to the ground. They have told you to hang on. The free fall is coming, with no mention of an octopus. Again, though, it's kind of your fault because you left with no notice. So maybe you would have known a little bit better how this could go if you had decided that you weren't going to sneak out in the dark of night like a bunch of thieving cowards. So, the ship is held by this octopus wrapped around it, its body inflated like a balloon, slowly lowering them to the ground. And I have to be honest, this was the best. I love this octopus. I wish that it was like going to be a permanent thing. I really wonder what happens because Conus calls it like the famous octopus balloon. But that octopus, once it's shrunk down, it is pretty much the size of a normal octopus. And I don't know how it gets back up. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe they just breed them. I don't know. But I found that octopus and the animation of it wrapped around the Going Merry with its little tentacles moving adorable, and I loved it so much. It reminded me of this really cool pink octopus mug that I saw on Amazon a few years ago. And for Unspoiled, for the community at Christmas time, we do a Yuletide book exchange thing, which you can join in the group on Facebook. I'm going to try and figure out another way to do it as well so that it's not just on Facebook. But I think that I got that mug for somebody in the book exchange thing. And it was one of those things that you buy for somebody else and then you stop and look at it and you're like, do I really want to give this away? Because this is dope. And I did give it away, but I think about it because it was a great mug. And this just really, really reminds me of that. It's just so cute, you know? It's pink. It's got these purple spots. It's very chill. It doesn't really seem to have a problem with the situation. It's not necessarily enjoying itself particularly, but it's also saving all of them. So they're well disposed towards it and very excited once they realize what it's doing. And as they begin to float downward, we have our last look at everything in the sky and all of the people, moving on to better things, including our friend the snake, who is smiling. I don't know how this friggin' snake could be this cute at this point, but I would love a long body pillow size stuffy of this snake. It's so adorable with its big eyes. It's so smiley. So our friends are probably in their into their journey a couple of hours, and we cut while they're continuing to lower to Earth to Cricket and the two, I don't know what I want to call them, apes, I guess. And he is talking to them and the rest of their crew about how everything is wrapped with this golden bell. We know what happened to the other half of the island. We know where the bell is, that it's in the sky. He is really very willing to completely close up shop based on their just hearing the bell. And I'm kind of interested in, because it ends with him saying, that dream is over. What's the next dream that we're going to pursue? And everybody cheering and being like, we're with you to the end, boss. And what I want to know is if they wind up making their next goal to get to Sky Island and see the bell. Because this guy's a descendant of Noland. So I feel like it would be extremely moving and like a very big deal to Viper to meet this dude. And it would be like truly full circle all over again, you know? But anyway, we don't get that information. We just get a bit of an acknowledgement that they know what has happened. They have closure on it, and they are on to more exciting things. Meanwhile, on the Going Merry, our friends are deciding what they're going to spend all of their loot on. And we have all of course, Luffy, I expected him to say that he wanted to buy food, but instead he says, I think we should buy a giant bronze statue, which, that feels out of character. I mean, it's not out of character to want to do a stupid thing with the money. That's 100% on character. But in terms of it not being food and just, I guess, a statue that he would like have on his ship, I suppose is where it would stay. That surprises me. And then I think it's Usopp who wants to get more cannons. Sanji wants a lockable refrigerator, which I think they all as a group should agree on. They have had enough problems with Luffy eating all the food they have. A lockable refrigerator and a lockable pantry are really a good idea. But trust me to agree with the guy who has a food-centric goal. And we have what Chopper wants is books. And I don't think, because I think it, like I said, it was Usopp who wanted the cannons. Zoro doesn't chime in at all, does he, with what he wants? And Robin doesn't either. I am curious what Zoro would have spent the money on if he was going to do something that was a big splurge. Like, new swords, maybe, but it feels like he likes the ones that he's got. I don't really know. What would Zoro spend it on? A really nice hotel where he could sleep all day? So, Nami has to put an end to all of this and say, guys, we can't do what you all want because we are going to wind up broke immediately if we buy everything that you're talking about. And all of a sudden they get interrupted by Robin, who is like, hey, where is the ship going, by the way? And when she comes outside, I love the fact that Nami is wearing a shirt that says evil on it. I don't know why it says that, but it does, and it is very distracting. But she screams because the ship has been blown completely off course. They got caught in some kind of air current. They are not dropping straight down, so she no longer knows where they even are. You know, wherever they land is going to wind up being a surprise because I guess the log pose up there off of the water, it doesn't work. It doesn't tell them anything. So who knows? Who knows? And Luffy is like, well, you know, we're going to land wherever we land. And they get interrupted by Sanji going, wait a second. No, nothing. Never mind. And at the time I didn't get what was going on. But he tunes back in later to be like, no. Okay, the octopus is smaller, right? I'm not imagining that. Is that happening? Because I really feel like it looks smaller. And everybody else looks up and is like, wait, is it? Luffy, meanwhile, has gotten up on top of the octopus and is bouncing up and down. I believe that the octopus had already been getting smaller before Luffy got up there. I am not trying to blame this octopus's like quick shrinking solely on Luffy jumping up and down on it. But I can't imagine that it helped. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, they are They begin dropping pretty quickly because our friend the octopus loses a bunch of air all at once. And it's about the same size as the ship by this point. And Usopp, underneath it, he does this big, brave thing. Honestly, I'm not even saying brave in quotation marks. Genuinely, he does something pretty badass, and he has all of these dials that help get the ship floating again. At least, like, add some equilibrium to it so that they're not dropping as quickly as they had been. Because they are above one of the cloud levels this first time that the octopus shrinks. So it is truly a situation where they would, like, basically vaporize on contact, you know? So he, like, drops off the side of the ship with a rope using his fucking starfish sucker feet and attaches these things. They're in, like, in midair. He's just on a rope. I mean, Usopp is so often the guy who's, like, whining and crying in the corner. And he has absolutely no qualms about doing this at all. It is bananas when he has decided that he is going to hyperfocus what he is willing to ignore for the sake of his craft. And I can't even be mad at that. I mean, he saves everybody. He genuinely does. It doesn't solve the problem because just as they all begin to, like, relax thinking that what he did totally worked, the octopus suddenly shrinks completely. They have lowered quickly enough by this time that they are not so far above the water that they will die. But it is still quite a drop that probably actually would have killed all of them. The suddenness with which it turns into just a regular sized octopus too. I don't know why, guys, but that got me so bad. I think it's the combo of the timing because everybody had started to get like comfortable and relaxed again. It's the sound effect because it's sort of like this, and it's how small the octopus looks in comparison to the ship once it's regular size. And it's like an insect. It's so suddenly so small. And it winds up landing on Luffy's face. And frankly, I think that was the right place to land. He deserved it. But, like I said, they all hold on and begin to plummet down. And they wind up landing in this really weird spot that is, like, surrounded by, is it walls or, like, I don't know. Some of it looks like cliffs, like it's naturally occurring. And they get all of these lights trained on them. And this alarm starts going off. And none of them appears to know where they are. So the episode ends with all these lights trained on them. And I think Luffy saying, "Where the heck are we?" And I have to imagine it's something related to, like, the Navy. But I don't know. The Marines? Maybe it's not related at all. But it was definitely, like, surprising to me that we literally landed the ship in the middle of our next adventure. They didn't even have to sail any further to, like, find a new island or wind up with, like, injuries to their boat that caused them to pull over at the nearest stop. They just land in it. I wasn't expecting shit to start off that fast. So I don't even have any theories. I should mention, too, that when Luffy is bouncing up and down on the octopus, Sanji comes up there to try and stop him, and they both fall off the side. And Luffy saves them, but you see Sanji's cigarettes just disappearing into the ether. And I know that Sanji doesn't smoke in the, like, one for US kids. What was that? If he couldn't smoke, did they make it a box of lollipops? I suppose that would be the easiest way to do it, but the idea that he's got a box of lollipops in his pocket at all times, That's actually genius. You know what they should do? They should make boxes about the size of a cigarette box. But when you open it, it's those dum-dum lollipops, like 8 of them. 2 rows of 4 in this cigarette box. I think that should be a thing now in honor of Sanji. So if anybody wants to get on that, go ahead and send me one once you get it all set up. All right, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you guys again very much for hanging out with me and for explaining things to me that maybe I should have already figured out. Apologies. And thank you to Florian for commissioning this episode. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.